Today, I'm giving you a life hack. A life hack that you can use for all of time. I'm not talking about something you've heard about before. This is something new. Now, by now, it probably piqued your interest, and you're probably wondering what I'm talking about. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm talking about right after the intro. All right, so today we're talking about the formula that I use to come up with names for companies. I decided to do this episode because people often ask me how I came up with the name Stable Gray. The formula is actually quite simple, and you can use the formula yourself to build your own brand. However, if you need help coming up with your next big idea, hit me up in the comments below and we'll set something up. Now, when people ask me how I came up with the name Stable Gray, I always tell them it came out of a dream. And that's certainly true, but well before I came up with the name, I was developing a formula of how I could come up with an excellent name. And I used that formula to validate the name Stable Gray before I registered it with the Secretary of State, the domain, and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to share that formula with you right now. There's so much information here. There's no way I could just read this off the cuff. I've got to follow along with this, all right? So here's the formula. The name has to be the following: plain English, 2 to 4 syllables preferably. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. It can be longer or shorter, but it needs to hit at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 of these things on this list before it meets my acceptance criteria to go ahead and move forward with it. So what are the other items? Easy to spell, easy to pronounce, easy to read, and alludes to the brand. Now, that's another one that we need to expand on a little bit, and we will in just a second. The .com has to be available. If the .com is not available, I don't care what the name is, I scrap it automatically. The full .com, not part of the .com, the .com. No dashes, no spaces. The name of the business, .com, has to be available or I don't move forward with the name. And we'll talk about why these are important. I go out and I check to make sure that all social media handles are available with the exact same name or the exact same domain name as the company. So either the company name has to be available on social media or the domain, the .com, has to be available on social media. And we'll talk about that more. There cannot be any direct industry competitors with the same or similar name. So for example, you can have a Silverline Corporation for the steel industry, but a Silverline Textiles Corporation, which is in the textiles industry, okay? So as long as it's not in the same industry, sometimes that can still work. It has to be either highly searched on Google or not searched on Google at all, okay? One or the other, hot or cold. If it's somewhat searched on Google and there's other things related, you're going to compete a lot for that territory on Google search. Go ahead, try it out for yourself. Search for StableGray.com and see what pops up at the top of the list. If you search for Stable Gray on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and even I believe on YouTube, we rank highly in that list, if not number 1, because there's no other names that claim that space. So we don't have a lot of competition. It just gives you a leg up on your competition if people can find you. Life hack. We're going to expand on that formula as we go through this next list of traits for a great, good, or bad company name. So let's start with great names. Great names are highly meaningful or totally meaningless, okay? So this goes back to the point that I said about alluding to the brand. All right, if the brand name alludes to the brand, that's a plus. If it means absolutely nothing to anyone, that's also a plus. but it can't mean sort of something to people. The name should appeal to something that people care about, or it doesn't mean anything to people. So it doesn't have to necessarily allude to the brand, but if that's the case, it should say something that people care about. All right. So let's say you're a chiropractor, and the name of your company is Backaches. Okay, that kind of alludes to the brand. If you want to specialize in treating people's backaches, you didn't say chiropractor in your name, or maybe it's Backaches Chiropractor, but you are using a word that means something to people. Okay. Conversely, you could say for the same company, a chiropractor, you could say Vacation Vibes Chiropractor, right? So it means something to people. It makes people feel good when they hear you say vacation. So you could say Vacation Chiropractor. That would be a great name because people want relief, right? And when they go on a vacation, they feel relief. So Vacation Chiropractor would be a great example to converse with the original. Other traits of great names: strong relationship to the brand or no relationship at all. So we kind of touched on that. It's easy to remember, a unique, weird, or odd naming convention. And we just touched on that as well. You wouldn't expect a chiropractor to be named Vacation. That's really weird. But it feels good and it sounds pleasing for some reason. So it's fine. And people will accept it. You want people to accept your name. That's what we're trying to do here. You want people to hear your name and receive it well. If people hear your name and they don't receive it well, then that's going to affect your branding. Okay, so you want to pick a name that resonates with people, not with. We'll get to the bad stuff later. We'll talk about the bad stuff in just a second. Great traits. Piques curiosity. It piques people's curiosity. Makes people wonder the meaning. So we'll go back to the Vacation Chiropractor. When you hear that, it's like, well, what kind of chiropractor is that does vacations? It makes you want to find out more about it. So great names kind of lure you in. It draws you in and makes you curious about what they do, what they offer, and what the meaning is behind that name. It makes you want to go research them a little bit. So that kind of draw is good. I'll give you a great example. The name Facebook, right? It really doesn't mean anything. So it's like, well, what's this all about? This Facebook thing. I've never heard of this word before. What's Facebook mean? So it makes you want to go check it out. That's part of the draw to their platform when they were early on. And the last great trait of a great company name is that the name tells a story. Notice when I'm using these words, right? It's kind of a storytelling thing. So like Vacation Chiropractor, it just takes you somewhere, right? If the name takes you somewhere, that's a very powerful name. It's like, yeah. So, and I'm going to go through a list of names that I've come up with that I'm actively working on so you can see what I'm talking about. But before we do that, let me give you a little bit more expansion on telling a story. It takes people somewhere, makes them feel connected, and it tells people right away what you're about. All right. So those are the traits of a great company name. Now, here are some traits of a good company name. The name has something with a similar meaning, right? So we kind of touched on that. Vacation Chiropractor. Chiropractor is used a lot for a chiropractic practice, right? That's a tongue twister. It relates to something you've heard before, right? So when you hear chiropractor, that's familiar. When you hear vacation, you're familiar with what a vacation is, all right? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So it's like, so you're going to get away, to escape that pain that you've been feeling. Okay, I get it. A good name can also be nothing special, right? It can be an acceptable name instead of remarkable. A great name is remarkable. It makes people talk about it. A good name is nothing special. It's not bad, but it's like, okay, sure, it's an acceptable name. So that takes us to the last trait, which is bad company names. Now, this one I see a lot, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to bash anybody out there, but there are some bad names, and it's just like, why did they pick that name? At Stable Gray, we deal with company branding every single day. So we hear a lot of different names, and sometimes names come through the office and we just wish they would change their name because it's hurting their brand. But some people are attached to their names for the wrong reasons, and we'll talk about that right now. Let me put some lotion. Sorry, my lips were super ashy. All right, so what are some traits of bad? Okay, you good? You good with the whistling? We're just gonna plow through this. We got some whining, howling happening from the window. All right, so what are some traits of bad names? It sort of relates to the brand, but not really. So in the case of a vacation chiropractor, let's flip that again to a bad name. Would be something like kickboxing chiropractor. It's like, well, it's very confusing, right? Which is another a trait of a bad company name. Well, are they kickboxers? Like, maybe the founder was a kickboxer? I don't know. It's confusing. It's like, what is he talking about? That doesn't make sense. For a chiropractor, maybe the Great Pains chiropractor. It's like, wait, Great Plains, right? Great Plains. No, Great Pains. That isn't the best name because it kind of sounds like it hurts. Hard to remember, hard to spell, right? Poorly spelled, using improper English, unless that's a certain thing that you're going for. If you are going for like an improper English, there are some exceptions, but you just have to make it so that it's just one letter that's misspelled so people can still tell what it says. Another thing you can do with improperly spelled words is shorten it so it's less letters for people to remember. A great example of that would be like shout out the Culture House. So it's CULXR. So some people, I've heard people say like the Color House because they thought it was color. So that's kind of the thing that can happen when it's misspelled, is people can misinterpret what you meant. But the Culture House, I think that still works because it's shortened, right? Like culture is CULTURE, 7 letters, and culture, CULXR, shortens it by 2 letters. So it kind of works. So they did a good job using that method, and it works for their brand because they're very urban and very street, very hip hop, and things are misspelled, and that's kind of the culture, no pun intended, that they're going for. All right, so let's just keep moving on. Bad traits include when the name sounds like other brand names. So here's some great examples. You wouldn't want to name your company these things. Gracebook, right? Because that sounds like Facebook. Weebay, because that sounds like eBay. You're competing with a very strong brand that already exists. Burger Queen sounds like Burger King. SlayPal sounds like PayPal. DrinkedIn sounds like LinkedIn. You get the idea. You don't want to pick a name that reminds people of other names that they've already heard before. You want your name to be unique. Remember, we said in the beginning, great names are unique, weird, or odd. So you want your name to have that trait. Other things that can really damage the brand name is if it's too generic. So like the coffee shop. Instead, I would say, Let's Coffee or Let's Coffee Shop. Another example, Pants Outlet, because you sell jeans or something. A better name might be the Pant Leg Outlet. Okay, it's kind of unique. It's a little bit more original. Obvious Destination. A better name might be Elite Retreats. Your Nails, A better name might be 9-Minute Nails. Okay, so those are some examples of how you can take a bad name and make it great. If a name is more than 4 syllables, that tends to hurt you a little bit. So here's some examples. My celebration party. It's too long. My celebration party. That's 7 syllables. It just doesn't feel as professional. It sounds like somebody just threw some words together, right? It's not really refined yet. Timed Performance Automotive Group. Timed Performance Automotive Group. Like that's a mouthful. Timed Performance Automotive Group. That's 9 syllables. Imagine you trying to say that to somebody. Oh yeah, I took my car to the Timed Performance Automotive Group. You took it where? The Timed Performance Automotive Group. It's like, I can't even understand. Just write it down. So it's creating friction that makes it hard for people to remember your name, right? And we said in the beginning, great names are memorable. And that's hard for people to just hear and remember it, as opposed to Culture House or as opposed to Stable Gray. It's very short. It's easy to remember. Something with gray in it. It was like Reliable Gray, Stable Gray. Yeah, that's it. It's easier to remember because it's shorter. So that's the reason why shorter names are more beneficial. The American Licorice Outlet Store. It's too specific. Okay, you just sell licorice. All right. How do you spell licorice? Most people misspell it. And then there's just a lot. It's a mouthful. So unless that's what you're going for, again, there are exceptions, but generally you want to try to stay in that 4-syllable range as best you can. Unless it's just a really, really good name. And I'll give you an example. So if you're using letters, sometimes it can be a little bit better, or it can be a little bit more forgiving. Like, for example, I use B&H Photo for photography gear, bnhphoto.com. B&H, a lot of times that is all that people say. It becomes encapsulated to just B&H, which is only 3 syllables. So B&H Photo. It's 5, it's only 1 over. It's still okay, and I can remember the letters B and the letter H. It's only 2 letters I have to remember. And is a conjunction word, so, we use that in almost every sentence. That's very easy to remember. All right, so another bad trait is when the name is mockable. The name itself has a strong meaning with other things, or it doesn't relate, and that makes people mock the name. So here's an example. So this is like an acronym for something, maybe Performance, Operations, Oversight, Procurement Offices. So people might mock that. They might say, well, that's too much to say, so I just say P-O-O-P. Oh, no. Poop. It sounds like poop. That's not good. You don't want your acronym to be poop for your business. That's not good. If your company was Hyundai, maybe you do some kind of daytime services that get free people's daytime up or something. But it sounds like Hyundai, right? The car company. So that's not good. Dance Party Law Office. So it's Dan's Party Law Office. It sounds like dance party. You don't want to associate partying with a legal service. It's mockable. It's like, oh, you can't take those guys seriously. They're all about partying, and just doesn't feel good. Let's say there's a company in Waco, Texas, and they do mole and hair removal. So Waco mole and hair removal. Now, if you just hear it, maybe it'd be okay. But if you see it spelled out, it almost sounds like whack-a-mole. Oh, it's just those whack-a-mole people. So it makes your brand mockable. All right, so you want to avoid those bad things at all costs. Those bad traits really damage your brand. So I promised that we would talk about brands that I've come up with so I can put myself on the spot, right? I don't want to beat up other people's brands. Let's talk about brands that I created. So Stable Gray is a brand name that I came up with. The name Stable Gray fits that criteria, right? It's less than 4 syllables It uses plain English spelling. It's easy to pronounce, easy to remember. It alludes to really nothing, right? Now, if you hear the backstory of stable gray and the meaning behind those words, stable being reliable, trustworthy, and gray, that's kind of what we're doing, is building a stable of brands, right? So we kind of like to use that horse breeding metaphor when we talk to people about the meaning of stable gray. Shout out to Julian Young for helping us come up with our brand story. Thank you, brother. Another name that I've come up with is Caicos Salsa. So one of my favorite vacation spots is Turks and Caicos. I wanted the salsa to carry that vibe, that energy that I experienced when I was down in the Turks and Caicos kind of area, the Bermuda kind of area. Very tropical, salsa, having a good time. And so it kind of alludes to that. And it's also 4 syllables, Caicos Salsa. So it's easy to remember. It's spelled with plain English, spelled exactly how it sounds. And so that's another one I came up with. Another brand that I came up with was Off Corporate. So that one, Off Corporate, 3 syllables. I made sure the .com was available on the .com. Registered that on social handles as well. Now, it is an earlier brand. It does take time for it to start to rank on YouTube and Google search and those types of things. But there's no one really using Off Corporate for a brand name anywhere, so should be fine. So those are 3 of the brands that I've come up with recently. But if you think of any major brands, you will hear these traits that I'm describing in a lot of those brands. This is a formula that you can use to build a strong brand for your company. If you need help with that, feel free to comment below or send me an email and we can talk about it. I love ideating and coming up with brand names and helping people go from 0 to 100 with their brand, and really excited about what's happening in the economy with the growth potential, things going digital, and looking forward to helping you tell your story in a more effective way. All right, so I'm going to leave you with a quote from Michael Barnes, my big brother. Once you build it, it belongs to the world. So remember that when you're building your brand, it's not for you. There are a lot of times when clients come in and they're building the brand that they like, that they want, that they feel good about. And I discourage you from doing that, because your brand is your gift to the world. It is made to serve the world. It is made to make the economy a better place to shop. So build your brand for your customer. Think about the name that your customer wants to hear. Think about the name that will make your customer feel good to shop with you. Think about the name that your customer will be delighted to tell other people about. If you can do that, you're on the right track to having a great company name. That's it for this episode of Off Corporate. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.